Welcome to Finding Your HR Advocacy Voice, the podcast where policy meets people's strategy. I'm your host, Tracy Justice, also with co-host Chris Schrader and co-host Rachel Guin. And each episode is designed to equip HR professionals, nonprofit leaders, and small business owners, especially those without a dedicated HR department, with the insights you need to understand how policy impacts your workplace. Let's break down the big issues, spotlight what matters most, and empower you to show up for your people and your purpose. Now let's get started. All right, now we're going to go ahead and get started. How are you all doing today?
I'm fine.
I'm good. A lot of exciting stuff happening. So
definitely. Now I know we missed last month due to some personal concerns, health issues, but we're back today, and we're back today with a lot of information. So what we're going to do something a tad bit different today. I'm going to go ahead and share a few comments that I want to highlight, and then I'm going to go ahead and give space to Chris and Rachel to share some of the hot topics that maybe some things that they've seen going on, and they want to share it with us and make sure that we know as HR professionals what's going on, and if there's anything else that we need to do, if there's any action to take. So what I'll share first is I'm really excited, you guys, for tomorrow. For our IndySHRM event, we're going to have a real cases, real solutions case study interactive workshop. Really excited about that. And the whole idea is that, SHRM's always talking about these 6 pillars, these 6-pillar policies, and how we should rally up our HR membership professionals and get them to join us in the 6-pillar policies. But sometimes I wonder if we fully understand them, right? Because we know what they are. But then how do we know that we really understand them? So I'm really excited for this opportunity where we're going to have HR professionals working on case studies, and then we're going to have attorneys. And of course, we know that attorneys aren't there to be their personal attorneys. However, to share some insight and wisdom and help us make sure that we understand HR. Because for me, what was enlightening was the Ames v. Ohio Department of Youth Services Department, and the whole plain letter reading. That was something new to me, and it still blows my mind to this day. Like, wow, I never knew that was a thing. So really excited about that. And then I have a rhetorical question for both of you. And I don't know, maybe you want to answer it today. You let me know, but if not, we'll save it for another episode. But I had someone say to me that HR doesn't really support employees. They don't really help employees. HR is only there to help the employer. And I think that with all of these different things that are happening, right? These different court cases, I think that sometimes, people might look at HR and say, well, maybe HR isn't really here for us. What are do you have any comments to that HR isn't really here to support the employees? They're here to support the employers.
Chris?
Yeah. So, well, if you went on YouTube and you look them up, there are I'd say about 3 or 4 highly prolific employee side lawyers in California that just pound the drum on it nonstop. This one dude, I swear to God, he's got like 1,000 hours of content out there. And this is his mantra is always the same thing. HR is not your friend. Don't tell them anything. Don't share anything. They're only there to hurt you. They're never there to help you. They will turn you on a minute. They'll knife you in the back. I mean, just really virulent stuff. I'm sitting there thinking, how do you fill out your FMLA paperwork? But okay. But anyway, there is a real mantra around that, right? And I've always said that HR, and I had a lot of different roles. HR was the last thing I came to, right? I started out in operations. I was in accounting. I was in sales. I was in business management. HR is the last thing I did. And I came to it out of mergers and acquisitions because that was when I realized that human capital was a strategic differentiator in success. That if you had enough cash, you could acquire the same systems as your competitor. You could acquire people, could market the same as your competitor, but your people could only be in one place at one time. And so whoever strategically arranged those human capital assets would win. Right? And that's what mergers and acquisitions taught me. And so I went to HR. The problem with it is this, as I see it. In order for HR to be effective, there is a duality to it. So on one side, you have to represent the employer, right? Because you've got policies and practices and rules and all this other stuff. And so you're kind of like the arbiter of that, if you will. And then on the other side, you also have to advocate for the employees. But here's the rub. If you advocate for the employees too strongly, the management will say, well, I didn't realize I hired a union boss. You're not. So if you advocate for the management, then they'll just say you're a management tool, and now you got all kinds of ER problems. And it is the only job out of all of them I performed. When I was in sales, all I had to do was bring in revenue. Nobody ever said, hey, Chris, do these other 5 things. It was just go get money. When I was in accounting, now analyze it right, account for the money, tell us where things are. Business management was just business management, right? It wasn't until I got into HR that I'm like, I'm walking a damn tightrope. And that's why I love it, because it's so hard. Because you can't, if you slip to one side or the other, you become ineffective.
I agree. I love that.
And I agree with all of those points. I was going to say, it's both. You are both advocating for the employee and the business, and that is so difficult. And that's why it's such a specialized field and such a unique role. And I often help my clients conduct interviews, and people that are interviewing for HR positions very frequently start with, I want to help people. And part of me thinks, God love you. Oh,
I know. So cute. That's so sweet. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Oh, keep that alive as long as you can.
Yes.
But the truth is you can still help people while protecting the company.
Absolutely.
And so, finding that balance is very hard though. And I think that it takes a very unique personality for someone who can do it well, because one thing they don't teach enough, in my opinion, and Chris, maybe you do teach this, is how to deal with conflict. And so many people who come into the role that want to help people don't know how to be the bad guy. And
they far too many don't.
Yeah. And so if your goal is to help people, but you also have to be a disciplinarian, then you've got an internal conflict that's going to be very difficult for you to manage. So when I do trainings to my corporate clients, and I work with mid-level management a lot, I often find, and I tell my clients, look, if you're going to promote from within, that's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to do, but do not put someone in a role of leadership and expect them to have all the tools to succeed, because
if you didn't develop them.
Yeah, if a great employee does not mean that they are a great leader. And it goes back very often to that conflict issue, because they've been working for 20 years on the line with all these people who they golf with. Their kids have grown up together. And now you're asking them to implement discipline and uphold company policy. And that's really hard to do. So give them the tools, train them.
Yeah, especially when you have personal relationships. Maybe you came up through the ranks together. Those are very, very difficult situations where you've got past relationship ties that now are kind of in conflict. Those are hard. To me, it comes down to how you help people, right? So I try to help people be successful. I'll give you a real example. What I always used to do in meetings where an employee this was last chance stuff. They were on probation. We'd laid out all the elements of it, super specific. You do these things to satisfaction, you're gone. We've done everything we can up to now. And the employees would always look for HR to shield them from that, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, look, I built this to give you a path to success. Okay, so let's be clear. If I wanted you fired, if your manager wanted you fired, this would not be discussion. This would not be discussion. You have an opportunity. The real question is what you do with it. And all I would ask of you is engage in it, because if you stay on the path you're on, you don't make the effort, you don't deliver the results, then you're going to paint that manager into a corner where they can do nothing but the last 4 lines of this document, and I'm going to sign off. Yeah. So don't put us in that spot.
I love that. I also, along those lines in these trainings, I always say an employee that receives discipline should never be surprised. And if you are doing what you just said, Chris, there's no surprise because the expectations have been set out. But more often than not, companies aren't properly following their policies. And then when they decide to implement them or terminate, it is a surprise because, and they may have a 1,000 emails about how terrible this person is, but they never sat down and had those important conversations with that individual.
No, because they wanted to avoid conflict because they didn't want to bring it up. And I've seen it time and time again. This is where I usually got cracked on the most by managers, and sometimes where I had VPs, I had to back down. Because I want to term this person. I'm like, okay, show me all the times you warned them about this. Show me all these other things. And they'd always say, well, they know what they're doing. So they're a mind reader.
Yeah.
How is that supposed to happen? So what you have, and I believe this very strongly, what every manager has a responsibility to do is put their people in a position to succeed, because you've been getting assets by the organization that are very costly. And you're supposed to be getting superior output out of that because we're looking for a certain freaking profit margin. And if you're not delivering that, I'm looking at you. Right? I'm looking at you. Yeah. And you walk me through how this is best practice management. So what we're going to do now is start back at the beginning, and the VPs had come in and say, you know it, and I know it, and all this other stuff. And I said, it's not what I know, it's what I can defend. And I always tell my students, Schrader's cardinal rule of HR management: don't walk your company into a case a third-year law student could win.
Yeah. You said what third-year law student?
A third-year law student w's not even a lawyer, hasn't passed the bar.
Oh, okay. So, okay, I get what you're saying. But and the reason why I'm even bringing this conversation up is that when we think about advocacy, these would be the same skills, right? Like advocacy within the workplace, being able to advocate for the employee rights. Now, sometimes HR professionals aren't in a position where they can assume that authority or assume it with confidence, right? And so then I can see the same thing happening when we say, okay, let's advocate, to the government. If you have a hard time advocating within the office,
are you going to, there, and Rachel can attest to this because she is an advocate. So most people absolutely are terrible at self-advocating. There's a small handful that are, but most everybody else can't self-advocate to save their lives. And if somebody doesn't advocate for them, it won't happen. Now, they could be right, it could be correct, something's going to be fixed. And I was one that took on that measure of advocacy at that time. I had to be an advocate for the voiceless. Now, it had to be right. It had to be correct. This had to be an issue for the company to deal with, right? But simply because they couldn't bring themselves not to be silent on a matter, for me, did not mean there wasn't a business issue to be addressed.
So you still took, you were able to, you knew what you needed to stand on, and you were able to just, build that business case around that and do that. So,
absolutely.
Okay.
It was a business case. It wasn't I'm trying to help this person, or she's struggling, or it's me. And I'm like, this is wildly ineffective.
Yeah. I think HR professionals, and I have one person in mind right now that I've been working with closely, struggle the most when they walk into an environment where you don't have uniform policies, practices, and procedures. And that's when you come into allegations of favoritism, discrimination, all of that. And so, and that's really hard to correct too, because if you come in and now you're implementing these, you're the heavy hand, and people don't feel like you're helping them when in reality you are. You're laying down those expectations. Those write-ups shouldn't be a surprise, so and over time it will prove itself. But I did an unemployment hearing once for a client. I was representing the company, and they had a 12-point system, and this person had 18 points. Well, they lost the unemployment hearing because the ALJ said, how were they to know at 18 they were going to get fired because you didn't follow your own policy?
Yeah. And you obviated your own policy. There's daylight between your practice and it.
Yeah, they said, well, we really liked him. We wanted to give him more chances. Okay, well, now here we are.
Now here you are.
So,
what I try to tell my students around these things, this is where I think HR gets it really bad, because every every HR practitioner that practices for like 10 or 15 years and does enough ER stuff thinks they're kind of a lawyer. I think you've run into these before, Rachel.
Well, yeah, I think I'd kind of feel like,
Now, I tell my students, you're going to have to master enough of it, because if you go to your boss and say, I got to call a lawyer for every little thing, they're going to say, well, then I'll pay them and get rid of you. You know what I mean? So you got to at least have a baseline knowledge so that you know when you call the lawyer. So you know when you call the lawyer.
I love that. And another great point. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so what I tell them is 99% of your conflicts in HR, so HR management, HR employees too, but especially HR management comes to you and says they want to do something. Now, this is the most preposterous, risk-laden proposal you have ever heard in your life.
Okay.
And every fiber in your body wants to say no and then spend the next 10 minutes proving how damn smart you are and how dumb they are. Right? Because you're on my ground, you're on my property. This is where I have it all over you. And management resents it to death. Because being right is not the issue. So what I say all the time is, you want to avoid saying no until the last possible minute. You need to persuade and guide. So what I used to do all the time when I heard the absolutely preposterous thing, I let them finish and talk, and I didn't frown, I didn't shake my head, I didn't do anything. And I always said, that sounds interesting. You seem very excited. Would you be interested in alternatives to achieve that with less risk? And they always said, yeah. And then I proceeded to completely unwind.
No, I really like that. I really like that. Because
if you cannot be a partner, you can't be
partner.
You'll never be able to navigate the cross currents, because that's what the employee and the management stuff is. It's a cross current.
I heard a lot of good stuff here.
And you gotta be perceptive about current switch.
No, but I really love that. So what I'm hearing is that as HR professionals, really, I feel like this acumen of building your acumen in government affairs is sort of an advantage or an edge, right? Because now you don't always have to call the lawyer for every situation, because as you're following some of the things that are happening, you'll get to know when it's a right time to reach out to the attorney. And then you'll understand where it's about building that business case and probably doing some more research and figuring out how you can, the words you use, persuade and guide and partner up with that C-suite, with the leader, and, make them feel like it's really making sure you're getting their buy-in, right? Like, I love that. I love that.
I'm going to give myself a little shout out right here, because
yes.
I think it's really important who your lawyer is too, and that the lawyers you're working with understand your organization, take the time to get to know you, and know this field really well. Because I have clients that will, when they come to me as a new client, they're afraid to call because they think they're going to get a 3-page memo,
right?
And all of that stuff. And I'm like, no. Here's my cell number. I'd rather you call me. Let's talk through it 5-10 minutes and knock it out before you've got a real problem down the road. And I commit to that, and I maintain it. And because I do this so much, I don't need to write a 3-page memo. Right. I know the answers, and I'm not alone. There are many other lawyers who are very good at this area of law. But if you get kind of a jack of all trades, they don't know the answer. And I just had this come up where an attorney wrote some unlawful policies for a client, and I got the handbook, and I was like, who did this? It was just a year ago, and I don't ever want to speak bad about my colleagues or other, but I was like, no. Ooh, okay. Then they're like, they said they didn't really have anybody, so they called somebody in Chicago and I was like,
ran it through Chat GPT.
Yeah. So there's value in finding the right partnership. Back to the term partner, I think your attorney should be your partner too. Yeah. And obviously we've all got to make money, but if you're good, you're busy enough, and you don't need to write that 3-page memo.
No, you don't.
So what's the 3-page memo though? Like, what do you mean by that? Like,
So a question I got today about FMLA. We've got a key employee who needs to go off on FMLA. Does that employee need to be salaried? Do we follow a rolling calendar year or a set calendar schedule? And I just walked through that with them really quickly. And I said, yes, it's got to be a salaried employee, but you don't have to bring them back to the same or similar position. And it's up to you. If you need to figure out what your system currently is or establish one with respect to it can be a rolling calendar, it can be set. And they were like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Off the phone.
The problem is on a 3-pager, that's like 3 paragraphs in.
Of legalese.
Yeah. The FMLA allows.
By first year, it's 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 100% accurate.
Okay.
Really. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
Most people don't know how read the law. I got stone lucky when I first moved to DC because I lived in a group house. All of us came from IU. And the girl that had the degree in Russian got a job at the National Security Agency. She could never talk about it. The girl with the journalism degree got a job at the Post. And the guy that was in the house was going to Georgetown Law. And first year law is just murderous. Rachel, as I'm sure you can attest, they try to break you to wash you out. And
okay.
my buddy, we all lived together at IU. I mean, not in the same rooms. We were in the same dorm. We were all in student government. We all knew each other, right? Really, really deep. And my wife was in there too. We showed my wife yet. And so he was just really struggling. And he got to the point where in his sleep, he'd be making oral arguments, right? And we could hear him, right? And so he was, I could hear him pacing, right? So I went upstairs one night. And I said, what the hell's going on? And he said, this just makes no sense. I cannot understand it. This shit argues against itself every inch of the way. I'm like, okay, what's the topic? And he says, consideration, which Rachel's, is a weird thing. Yeah, you're laughing.
Consideration?
Yeah, consideration. We won't go into it now. But anyway,
okay.
You know,
boy.
Laughing immediately.
I'm going to be a lawyer after this.
So anyway.
Go to law school after this.
Let me see if I can help. Now, at the time, and I don't know what it was like when you went, Rachel, but at the time, Georgetown was still doing Socratic method, like paper chase stuff. So you knew when you were getting called on. And there was also random stuff that happened. And he was stone cold terrified of the guy that taught. I mean, absolutely like shaking his shoes, terrified of this curmudgeon-y professor. And so he just way over prepared. I mean, just disproportionately, right? Mm-hmm. Prepared for this class. And I'm like, well, no, have a crack at it. I mean, I don't know crap I can read. So we start going, I start reading it. I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but these are like the 3 main things in it. And it's got dependencies. These are variables. And so depending upon what's going on, it goes this way or it goes that way. I don't think you have to get really deep into it, but just, it seems to me these are the triggers. And so I leave and I go, and the next day he comes back and he said, will you be my study partner? I'm like, dude, I am not in law school. I'm in law school. So I vicariously went to first year law at Georgetown against my will.
Nice. Yeah. Consideration is a little tricky until you get into practice, and it does.
Yes. And then it makes sense. But in the abstract, I had to read it like 3 times and I'm like, I think they made this up. I just think somebody invented this to make it hard, right? But you're right, it does make sense in reading,
but yeah.
So well, let's have Rachel.
So we'll move along. So I was thinking that maybe we'll start with the space. Well, because I haven't heard of it, but I think you said SpaceX, right, Rachel?
Yeah.
Okay. So I figure we'll jump into that, and then after that, then we'll talk about the government shutdown, because I know a lot of HR professionals probably have a lot of questions and want to know, what does this really mean in the bigger scheme of things? So let's go with you, Rachel, first.
Okay, yeah, great. And just before I get started on that, I want to hit on the Kim Davis case that was seeking to overturn Bostock v. Clayton, which is the case that legalized gay marriage. And the Supreme Court refused to hear that case, upholding Bostock. And I think for HR professionals, what they need to know about that is if the Supreme Court had taken it up, there was a likelihood they were going to overturn. Mm-hmm. And what did that then mean for Obergefell, right? Which is the case that recognizes under Title VII sexual orientation, gender preference, and all of those things that in the LGBTQ plus community that are still currently protected under Title VII, regardless of the EEOC guidance right now. So I think that is all going to remain in place, at least for now, because I do think the two are tied, and it appears that the Supreme Court does not have an appetite to overturn either of those decisions. That
was my feeling, because they offered no comment. It was just like, nope.
Yeah.
So,
and there was
not obligated to, but they.
Yeah, and Chris, you made the point earlier. There was a panel or something that Justice Alito was on, and the question came up, and they never talk about cases that are currently in front of them, but he said that he was going to respect our stare decisis, and essentially that means the rules that the court has already established, old case law, and that he finds that very important. What kind of was his response? And so that led people to believe that they were not going to take it up, and that is ultimately
which practically every other person nominated for the court has said for like 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I think it makes sense to clarify what you said a little bit ago. You said, so that even though the EEOC has their guidance, the LGBTQ community is still protected by Title VII. So HR professionals need to understand that, right? Like, really understand that.
Sure. Yeah, because if they don't investigate, they're going to have to issue a right to sue letter based on the complaint. And now it's all running. So you got to remember, the EEOC's backlog is years long. They issue so many right to sue letters. It's not even funny.
So you can, the only impact that has right now, that guidance has, is on the investigation process itself, to Chris's point. So they just issue the notice of right to sue, and that means that the person making the allegations can just go straight to court as soon as they get that letter. So
they can lawyer up, and they can get a court.
Yep. And do what they need to do. Yep. So does that mean that they can sue under Title VII, or they're suing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's so the right to sue allows you to sue under Title VII. Okay.
When the EEOC was created, they were worried from the beginning that what if this goes off the hook, right? And so they specifically built in this whole right to sue concept so that justice would not be denied simply because the government couldn't process fast enough. So that was the logic at the time when the EEOC was created by executive order back in 1973, I think. That was on my last exam. You'd think I know, but anyway,
there's so much information you pack inside your head.
That's where that comes from, Tracy. Well, when you do this stuff, you kind of have to know.
Okay, so with regard to SpaceX, it's shocking to me. I was actually in a round of labor negotiations, and the union president, not their national representative, but the union president also didn't know about this case. The media hasn't given it a lot of attention. I have my feelings as to why, but the reality is that the legitimacy of both the NLRB and likely the NLRA are under attack. And we may no longer have unions in the private sector very soon. Yeah. And I
do tell.
Yeah, I will tell. So little background, and this is coming from the decision. This decision is from the Fifth Circuit. And there's a conflicting decision from the Ninth Circuit, not surprising, which means this is likely going to go up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, right.
And there's already some indicators that the Supreme Court is going to favor the Fifth Circuit based on some other comments that have already been made in other decisions. Right. But so the NLRB,
and they usually favor the Fifth Circuit.
Yeah,
there's that.
In recent days, that seems to be So by way of background, the NLRB was created in 1935. To administer and enforce the National Labor Relations Act. And the NLRB relies heavily on administrative adjudication. So they have a two-part process. They have ALJs that hear cases. And by even going back a little further, if you are an employee and you feel as though your rights have been violated under the National Labor Relations Act, terms and conditions of your employment, that can look like a lot of things. I won't get into it too much, but you can file a charge with the NLRB. The NLRB will receive the charge. They will investigate the same way that the EEOC investigates claims. But unlike the EEOC, the NLRB has a different process. They have a board that is made up of 5 members. They have a general counsel. The board is appointed by the president, and the general counsel and the board are both appointed by the president. However, general counsel can be replaced by each president. The board serves terms, and they are not to be replaced absent removed by neglect of duty, malfeasance in office, but for no other cause.
Right.
Okay.
And
so
then,
the only role is
unless their term expires, then the president can reappoint. And then the ALJs can only be removed for good cause. So they have. So the ALJs, if a charge is found to have merit or not, and the other party wants to challenge it, they can go in front of the ALJ and have a hearing. And then the ALJ makes a decision. If either side doesn't like the decision, which is typical, then the board will hear it. And you have to have a full board in order, well, a quorum. So 3 of 5 to hear it. And then they will make a decision. Now, in January of 25, when there was a whole lot going on with respect to all of these boards, we saw this with the EEOC as well.
A lot of
President Trump removed a woman by the name of Gwen Wilcox. She was a Democrat. She was appointed by a Democrat president, and she had not done anything wrong that would meet the standards. I mean, and there wasn't really a challenge to that. I think it was understood Trump didn't want a Democrat there, so he removed her.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So while this is all happening, Elon Musk through SpaceX is growing his operations, and there was a charge in process that was filed. So in March, Elon said that, well, actually it was, there was another challenger that questioned whether the president had the right to remove Wilcox. I think Wilcox herself has brought a claim. Yes. SpaceX comes in and sues and says that the NLRB's policies are unconstitutional as it relates to this appointment process. The president should have the full authority to do this. And the Fifth Circuit took it up and affirmed what the lower court said, which is we agree. We agree that there should not be this good cause or necessity of malfeasance. And so basically, we will allow the Supreme Court to make the decision, because around the same time, the Ninth Circuit came out with their decision. So the long-term implications of this are pretty substantial, because if that process itself is unconstitutional, what else is unconstitutional, possibly about the NLRA? And I had found some articles. I was doing this kind of last minute, but the court said that employers have made their case in between compliance and constitutionality, holding again that the process by which these people are removed is unconstitutional, and that the president should have more power than he currently does. And they go out of their way to separate the NLRB from the FTC, because similar challenges have been brought to the FTC and upheld. And so they said, we view these organizations as completely different. And as they should. I think they are.
Okay. Why as they should? Just for clarification.
Well, the FTC is not viewed typically as a political body.
No, that's right.
Politically motivated. Yeah. And the NLRB is typically known as a politically,
because of union, not
from
union.
The very beginning. I mean, it was from the very beginning, it was set up that way.
So who did it set? Which under whose presidency?
Franklin.
The New Deal. Is it the New Deal? Okay. And okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've heard so many things about the New Deal.
NLRA,
Okay.
NLRB.
So it's just about dismantling the whole New Deal thing. Okay.
And so the one article said, the Supreme Court, if they agree with the Fifth Circuit, they would invalidate an administrative process that has been in place for over 90 years and has long governed the adjudication of unfair labor practices and the regulation of labor relations in the private sector. And then there is a lot of discussion online about what the fallout from this will be. And this, it says it will likely direct the allegedly unconstitutional portion of the NLRA, while the rest of it may remain intact. But if you have what I see happening is, if ultimately the board is just dismantled, which may be the case, because what they don't want is, if President Trump isn't elected, immediately they're going to replace them with all Democrats, right? And then we're going to be in this.
And then it's just silly at that point, right? Because
this is not the first time that's been proposed. This is like the 80th time that's been proposed. For a long time, arguments have made that back when the NLRB was created, the federal court system was not nearly as robust as it is today in terms of numbers and judges and, all that other stuff. And they didn't want to pitch this all to judges at the time. They created this thing because these ALJs that Rachel's talking about are not full-blown judges. And I can tell you from personal experience.
Okay, not full-blown judges.
These people vary widely in terms of competency and capability. Am I correct?
Oh, it varies. It varies.
Across the board, whether you're at unemployment.
Unemployment. Well, yeah, I was even leaving them off the hook. But it's a box of chocolates for sure. And so as a result, you can have uneven experiences. But Rachel, I have a question for you because I need to connect the dots for me.
Okay.
As I heard it, and I'm assuming I heard it wrong. That's where else. As I heard it, it seems to be an argument about appointment authority.
It is.
Okay. So connect the dot for me. How does that then connect to possibly invalidating everything? He just appoints no one?
Well, the appointment authority is statutory through the NLRA.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right? So they dismantle.
You got to put somebody up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they dismantle that, I think that it would be my opinion if I'm him, and I'm not, and he surprises me all the time, but that it would be best to dismantle it and manage it more like the EEOC, taking away the teeth that that the NLRB currently has. Does it eventually completely dismantle the NLRA? I don't know, but I can tell you that it feels like a slippery slope to me. And because this is a chip, and I think that there's, in the AFL-CIO participated in this. They wrote an amicus. Yeah. And I'll be interested to see whether the Teamsters weigh in, because the Teamsters, were big supporters of Trump. And there are a lot of union people that supported him. And so it will be very interesting to see how they react when the Supreme Court, assuming it does, and whether they see the ultimate threat of the elimination of the NLRA, which is something Elon Musk has been very open about. We don't need unions anymore.
Where honestly, I thought you were going to go with that. It was going to eliminate the right to unionize for public workers, because that was not in the law.
No,
but for private.
I know. That's where I thought you were going to go, because that was the one thing that wasn't in the law. The other stuff was baked in from the beginning.
Yeah, no, but Trump has also been open about wanting to eliminate federal unions, and the public unions, with the exception. I mean, there are no, to my understanding, at least in the state of Indiana, there's the only way a union can organize as for fire, police is through permission of the local government.
Oh, absolutely correct. Because they're in public. Yeah, the public safety people have the hardest time organizing, right? For obvious reasons. But,
why do public safety people?
Well, because so much is at risk to the public. Lives lost in fires, lives lost from police not policing. I mean, the seminal moment of what really broke the back of public safety unionization in the U.S., and it didn't really revive until the 1970s, was Calvin Coolidge, president but not yet, governor of Massachusetts. And the Boston police go on strike, and the whole town just goes to hell. And so he orders them back, and they say, no, we're not going to go. And he called out the Union Guard and kicked in doors and dragged their butts to the police station and said, do your job or we'll just plug you. And
what? It just blows my mind sometimes, where I'm just like, so this is America, though. I mean, just got to read the history.
Well, but from that point on, the reason it happened is it had gotten so egregious. I mean, there was mayhem in the streets. There was no control. Militias were forming. There was vigilante stuff going on everywhere. The gangs were taking over. I mean, just read about it. I mean, it was just off the hook crazy. And finally, he was like, I'm tired of messing with it. And it catapulted him to the presidency. And it really turned back the clock on that stuff. And like I said, they didn't really start organizing with any kind of fervor all the way until the 1970s. There was like a 100-year hiatus, where, less than that. Yeah.
So to make sure that I'm following, so this case could seriously impact the private sector when it comes to unionizing and the ability to be able to do that.
Not unionizing itself at this point. I probably stated that in the beginning, but I do feel like this is the first chip of something that is yet to come.
Yeah.
And I think it will be coming, because as soon as they say that this is unconstitutional, what else is unconstitutional in this statute and what else will be challenged? And so that's really the crux of it. What it will do, the result of this decision will take teeth away from the NLRB and its enforceability. It will require people to kind of get their little right to sue, and then they got to go to the courthouse. Whereas now, a decision from the board is impactful, and they are not challenged. I mean, they do get challenged.
Yeah, they do, but it never works.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, their word goes.
Okay.
So let me ask you this question, Rachel.
Yeah.
There's unions and there's unions. So let me tell you what I mean by that.
Okay.
I grew up in a union household. Okay. So I can tell you firsthand that skilled trade union people who go to school and work for 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years to get a journeyman's card.
Sure.
I'm talking here electricians, plumbers, pipe fitters, steam fitters, HVAC, masons, carpenters and joiners.
Bricklayers.
Bricklayers, yeah. So all of these unions all have one thing in common. They run whole cloth the attraction of human capital, all of the recruiting, all of the education, all of the training, the whole 9 yards. They run all of that. No employer in those areas that needs something done, you just tell them how many you need, and they get them there, right?
Okay.
For every bit of that.
Okay.
As a result, the employers are willing to pay for that, because the other thing it does is it guarantees no competition on labor costs. You bid a job for an electrician in Mishawaka, it's the same bid for an electrician in Indianapolis.
So the union in a way controls that then.
Helps control cost, guarantees high quality trained human capital. So employers look at those people as partners. Also, starting about 15 years ago, they even took management of the pension funds off their table. And so they run that too.
So I'm going to push back a little, Chris, because I have a client with this. So I do both sides. I've got a client with a charge pending in front of the NLRB, and then I have a bunch of clients that are union. Most of my clients that have a union, and some are construction, so we deal with that, would give anything to be rid of them. And the thing
that's what I heard too.
And they say they cost too much.
Yeah, construction's a little different because it's all kinds of labor commingled. I was a common laborer on most job sites, and I was treated like dirt. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But like I've got one in particular who just went through another audit. They have zero say-so in it. They have to pay for the audit. And they had hired some other people that were non-union to do some work that the audit decided should have been done by these union people, even though the union rarely actually provides because there's such a worker shortage. And
they can't keep up. They can't keep up.
Yeah. And so then they get sued. And then there's so there is a lot of, I'm not giving my personal opinion on any of this, but that is what I hear from my clients. There's a lot of frustration.
I could see that
with the unions, frustration with the unions, and that's what and that's what I was hearing.
Again, in most of these employers' heads, what I'm paying you for is skilled labor. I agree to this labor cost. We agree to all these things because you're going to hold up your end. Now, the reason I bring that up is one thing I've also learned about those union workers is they do not particularly think much of union workers who join someplace and say, I get to put on a jacket and I'm a union member now, just by virtue of going to work at a company. It's like, you don't have any skill, chief.
That's why I said there's unions and then there's unions.
Here's my point. Let's say it went that way. I wonder how many companies would be willing to take on the brotherhood. I mean, where are they going to find the people to train? Where are they going to? I mean, my God, that is so intertwined. And
really, I'm trying to think of the different clients that I have, and and I think it depends on the union. Like I would say, and some of them obviously are a lot more specialized. So when you're dealing with the electricians union, for example,
correct, IBW,
they're managing the Google project, and
those are all my uncles and cousins. That's why I know.
Okay, no, I mean that's a really, I think my personal, I'm also biased. My son-in-law's there, but a very valuable union that does unique training. I think when you get into some of
every penny.
some of the bricklayers, some of the cement masons, and that's not to say what they do is not skilled, but I think it's a lot easier to train someone to do that work by company X as opposed to sending someone through electrician journeyman college.
It is, but as a guy who was a mason's helper, it's a long time before they actually put you in charge of a wall, because you get it drilled into you. I used to hear this all the time. I'm off by a 16th of an inch and somebody's going to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Down the line, somebody's going to die. And
so
I'm sorry.
No, will the perception of employees be that maybe they're starting not to care about employee rights? Like, as these things happen, I'm not saying that's, but perspective, like optics, doesn't it kind of feel or look that way? Or maybe not feel, because but maybe look.
So AI is part of this. So here to answer your question, Tracy, here's what I think is going on. The employers are fine with the employees who show up every day, deliver results, aren't a pain in the ass to manage, highly capable, engaged in what they're doing, just really cool people to work with. And if they could get rid of the people that aren't like that and do it with AI, they'd do it tomorrow. And with that kind of goes it sure would be easier for me to work directly with Rachel one-to-one and find a way to make her happy. And I would exert myself to some great degree to make Rachel happy. You know what I mean? And this other person over here, why would I do that? I would blow that salary schedule down.
I'll give you an example of where I think, I don't know about how the employees feel, but there are situations where I think unions, I know there are situations where unions have taken things too far, because I've also represented employees versus union. And I have advocated for unions. So I come at this without, I'm really very on the fence about, I had a client, an employer, where an employee broke a rule and it resulted in millions of dollars of damage and the death of someone. And we fired the employee, and the union forced us to arbitration because for that policy violation, we hadn't typically fired people.
Right.
And they thought it should be the violation and not the result. Right. Even though this was the biggest catastrophe in this organization since the beginning of the organization. We won.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you don't get to pretend it didn't happen. But those are the kind of things I think when I'm talking to people are really far one way or the other, where it's really hard to wrap your mind around how someone could in good faith think that was okay. Because if we put that employee back and that same thing happens again and someone else dies, what do we tell
negligence?
That? Right?
Well, you're going to get sued for negligence. That's exactly.
Of course. At that point,
you got no defense. I mean, you're just going to get
right. So that's the kind of thing. Also, one of my exes had started working a union job and they told him, slow down, you're working too hard, you're retired now.
That happened to me. I got told to slow down on a job because I was working faster than the contract called for.
Yeah.
And they said,
that's interesting, right? Like it's like,
but then
they said you're supposed to work to standard, right? I mean, we negotiated this. This is what it is. It wasn't, they weren't upset about me showing them up or stuff like this. It's like, we guaranteed this productivity.
Calm down.
Obligated to deliver it. So just cool it. Cool Sparky. Yeah.
And so it's hard to reconcile that with but on the same hand, when I look at the concept of the union and the purpose, I completely agree, support what they've done historically for workers across our country. They cannot be thanked enough for the weekend, for overtime pay, for safety, protocols. So, but it's kind of, are we tipping? Are we, is there a way to pull back? Can we find a common ground in it?
Yeah. The problem with the unions is they never figured out how to manage success. And so they're stuck pretending it's 1932 every day.
Yeah, and I had a case where it was employee versus union, where this employee had gone to management, moved up, and she was a traitor. And so they ripped her hair out. They put photos of her in the bathroom and they were urinating on them. They were threatening her, following her to her car. And so there is that side of that too sometimes. And this is, this is not to say all unions are like this.
No. It just means that there's all kinds of shapes and sizes and colors of unions, right? And
that union didn't begin with a T, did it?
It didn't, but it's funny you mentioned it.
Sounds like you're describing that 5 year
it didn't.
Caterpillar went through.
No, but Jimmy Hoffa Jr. is very much alive and involved with that T union. And there are a lot of those mentalities that still exist there.
Yes, they are.
From employees who were dealing with that.
Wow.
So
the two unions willing to throw down quickly, in my experience, have been the Teamsters and the miners.
I mean, it's not funny, but
the miners were shocked.
You said what?
Oh yeah, when the miners first tried to organize, they were just freaking shot.
Yeah, then there was when they were on strike, there was one who went in. I don't know if this was a case in Virginia. And one of they call him like a rat. If you go in and you're on strike, and this person went in, he had to feed his family. And so
cross the line.
So they actually blew him up, I think.
Yes.
If I remember that story correctly. Yeah.
So,
and that's like years ago back.
That was
20 years.
I was like maybe 15. Yeah.
Maybe 15. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. No, they don't.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, and this was
Tracy, just look up
a person, a union, a person who was a union blown up in a mine.
There was a whole crime.
No, I think they bombed their car.
It was something like that. Yeah,
I think it was a car.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like certain people who are crazy. It is not all unions. It is not.
No, it's not.
And they have done a lot of good. So I feel like if there are any union people watching this, they're probably like, oh my gosh, they're bad.
No, we're not cracking.
No, you know what? No, because from what I'm hearing from both of you guys, like, no, I'm, because I'm not really involved with a lot of unions at all. So what I'm hearing is just that, there is just a varying degrees. There's just different types of unions. Like there's different types of people.
But the one thing, the one thing that Rachel said that every HR pro should take to heart, that the vast majority of workforce treatment and what we teach is best practice and things like workforce flexibility and time paid off and job protection for this and job protection. Every bit of that came from unions, and they died to get it, literally died to get it.
And I also like to add one of my biggest clients is Fort Wayne Public Transportation. I think I've mentioned before, I also represent Bloomington. And we just finished labor negotiations with CityLink is their name. In conclusion, their national representative was here, and he just said, I've got to tell you, I've not seen anything like this before. The cohesion between the company and the union, the transparency from the company. And there are situations where there can be cohesiveness and collaboration. And I think
where there are good relations, it's not a problem. It's genuinely not a problem.
Yeah. So for all the bashing, there's some good there too. So.
No, I mean, because I think
I know we're on time.
Yes, I apologize for that.
No. Don't worry about it. This was a very robust discussion, and Rachel, as usual, killed it. What I want to talk about here briefly is the government shutdown update here. So in case everybody noticed, we're shut down. This is the longest shutdown we've ever seen. And political parties, whether it be Democrat or Republican, are now 14-0 for getting what they wanted by shutting down the government. Why anybody keeps on running up this hill is beyond me, but here you go. So there were a couple things that really drove this, right? So you got to go all the way back to last year when the PPP was passed, right? Well, actually this year, but March of this year. And when Tracy, as I told you before, when you've been in power and you lose power in DC, it's like someone died. I mean, everywhere is ashes and sackcloth. It's the most, you go from being in charge to having waiters ask you who you are and can't remember. I mean, it's terrible.
It's not funny, but I mean, it's real. It's a real thing.
They call it the wilderness. That's the term they use. They call it the wilderness. And when you are in the wilderness, you can't wait to get back. The problem is we don't have elections for 2 years, right? Those are the opportunities to shape the composition of the houses of Congress, right? So in between, there's just not enough there. So boy, you get an off-year election for a dog catcher in New Hampshire, and it's just blood sport, right? I mean, just everything is piled into it because there's so few opportunities to quote unquote fight back. So most of the Democratic base really felt that Chuck Schumer did not fight hard enough for the BBB. Now, I think he got a really raw deal because he needed something to fight, and that was votes, and he didn't have enough. And there was really nothing he was going to do. He could not do anything to stop it. He just couldn't. And so he was just excoriated for that. And then, he's up for election next year. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez opined she might want to be senator. And he just absolutely lost his mind, right? And so everybody knows this date is coming, right? Because we no longer do budgets like normal people. We just pass these spending resolutions that last like about 6 months and just have a knife fight every 6 months, right? And so that was coming here. So the spending resolution was ended, and the government can't just spend money. There's got to be authorization for it, right? And so it was set to sunset. Everybody on the planet knew this. Everybody, right? So on September 19, a full month and change before it's going to turn into a pumpkin, the House of Representatives passed a clean CR on a party line vote. Now, in DC, the term clean refers to a bill that does what it says it does. It's usually like one page and we're doing these 5 things and that's it. That's referred to as clean. And so they then sent that to the Senate. Now, the House plays by very different rules than the Senate does. The Senate has had from the beginning, the founding of the Republic has had strong protection for minority party members. Okay. And so one of these has to do with the filibuster. So in order to get, if the other side, if the minority side that doesn't have the votes to stop it wants to oppose it, then they can invoke what's called cloture. And once cloture is invoked, then 60 votes is needed to move to be able to have permission to move the legislation to the floor. You got me? So it's like the first gate. That's like permission. This created a mathematical problem for the Republicans because they only got 53 seats. So just as in past years, Republicans have done this. I think the Republicans may have done this slightly more in the D's, but don't hold me to that. I think they're about equally guilty. I think 7-7 or 6-5 or whatever. But this was the place where Schumer could fight. Now, the one thing that the out of power party does is they can run the clock. And so they use this period to negotiate the things they don't have the votes to get passed. So they say, okay, we'll pass it, but we want PBS funded, refunded. We want this, we want that, we want that. And they were trying to undo pieces of the BBB, knowing that President Trump and the Republicans who fought so hard for that would never do that in a million years. So now you got your fight on. And the gamble was that the Republicans would be blamed for the government shutdown. Now, I always thought that would never work because it was really super damn obvious that 53 is less than 60. I can do math. But it turned out they were mostly right because apparently nobody knows about cloture. And the Republicans kept on saying, look, we're taking action. They put the bill up like 34 times. They put the bill up 34 times, knowing it was going to get voted down because they want to be able in November when they're running to say, we tried to open the government 34 times and these wouldn't let us. Here's all the dates we voted. Here's everything we did. Here's the votes, the whole 9 yards. We tried. Them the votes. Give us more votes and all this stuff in. Right? That's going to be their argument. So the trick in what Schumer was trying to do was hold his caucus together until the pain became so maximum that Trump would have to yield, right? Now, I think the fatal flaw in this logic was the baseline assumption that President Trump was troubled in any way, shape, or form with the federal government being shut down. And he demonstrated every day that he didn't care by not, right? And so it kept on turning up and kept on turning up. Then the SNAP stuff hit, right? And that was all because of the, help me here, Rachel, USDA.
And I know she's about to head out at 5.
Okay, does USDA do SNAP?
I'm sorry?
Does USDA administer SNAP?
I think that's right.
Okay. So SNAP started running out.
If you need to leave, Rachel, that's fine. Yeah, because I know she's had a hard stop.
Much, guys.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. All right.
So SNAP starts running out of money. Okay. Now, the thing you have to remember about food security in the U.S. or the food support we do, we've got like 3 different programs. And so SNAP is the last one. That's like pull this emergency lever, right? You have to be pretty poor to qualify for SNAP. So, but the problem was SNAP didn't have any authorization. So they were running out of money, and there is this pool of money that's like sitting there in case of emergency that the USDA can use to pay for SNAP.
Okay.
The problem was the USDA lawyer said, according to the way Congress wrote that for us, that is like, economic upheaval. Like people are in the streets starving by the thousands. This is like depression level hunger, right?
Oh, and they're saying we're not there yet.
Well, what they said was, that's not what's going on. What's going on is these people are fighting in a sandbox for no damn good reason, and that doesn't reach the threshold. So the USDA lawyer said, this, you guys not be able to get a bill done is not that kind of emergency, because if they use that money for that, it's got to be replenished, right? So, So he's like, no, right? So now this goes on DEFCON 4, and then so the government workers can't work, Congress shuts down, or the House shuts down, the airline traffic controllers, everybody, right? This all starts going. And I really genuinely think that both sides thought the other would blink and didn't. And then what happened on Monday, and I did not know this till today. I had no idea it happened. So on Monday, 7 Democrat senators crossed the line and voted for cloture, which then allowed a deal to be struck. So I just found out today that those same 7 people went to Schumer at the very beginning and said, for the love of God, don't do this. This is just going to lead down a rabbit hole. We're just going to disrupt people's lives for no damn good reason. And we don't have the votes to get any of this done. Let's live to fight another day. Just keep the government open. Just keep the government open. They were telling don't do the filibuster. They were like, don't do it. And he said, I'm doing it. Now, a big piece of this is because he's afraid of getting primaried by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is going to primary him anyway and beat him like a drum if he shows up. Right.
Yeah, I heard her speak to Bernie Sanders.
Like he finally, like 1 minute before the polls opened in New York, he endorsed Mondami for mayor. Did you see that?
No.
His endorsement. He recorded it. It looked like a hostage video, I swear to God. But anyway, so Schumer.
Well, you feel like he was forced to do it?
It looked like he was like reading something in front of him, and like somebody off camera had a gun to his head. That's what he did, a hostage video.
So, goodness.
So, anyway, it was just, if you know anything about how Schumer talks and what he does, it was super wooden. No real emotion in it. The words he was saying were not backed by, his typical verbosity and style of speaking. It was just alien. That's what I meant. He was like, I'm forced to read this. No. So anyway, so that now got kicked loose. So the Senate pulled together a deal. And so the components of the deal are, this is the Senate bill. I'm going to get to the House bill in a minute. So the Senate bill agreed to spend money on military construction, everything Veterans Affairs, pay the federal workforce, fund all the non-Social Security benefits, because Social Security can't be affected by a government shutdown, even though everybody believes that. That hasn't been true for decades.
Oh, okay.
People still scream that. I'm like, will you please stop? That hasn't been the law forever. and the Senate agreed. Now, listen to me very carefully because it's very important. The Senate agreed to have a vote to extend COVID benefits for increased subsidies for ACA plan premiums. So to explain,
they recently just did that.
No. They agreed they agreed to have a vote. They didn't say they voted for it.
Okay.
They said they would let it come to the floor.
Okay.
So you got to turn the way back on machine here and go all the way back to the first term of Joe Biden. And remember when he put that American Rescue Plan in place and did blowout spending and all that? Okay. So baked into that was all this COVID stuff. And so you remember with COVID, a lot of people got laid off. And a lot of people got laid off who aren't used to being laid off, like white collar people and high earners and stuff like that. Now, the way the ACA was built, it subsidizes the premiums for people who are fairly poor, like two people making $25,000 with one kid. You know, they would get really high subsidy. Their health care would cost almost nothing, right?
Okay.
And that's the way the ACA was built, right? Okay, fine. And everybody was like, you know, okay, healthcare is expensive and poor people can't afford it. And so whatever. So, but when COVID hit, you now start having higher paid people getting laid off. So the Democrats put through a COVID provision that moved the ceiling for household income from like 48.8 or so. I'm going to get this wrong, but it's something like that. It's like 48, right around 50, something like that, all the way up to $150,000. You could qualify for the subsidy all the way up to $150,000. Okay.
Okay.
And naturally, people piled in, right? Now, the Republicans refused to vote for that bill. There was not a single Republican that voted for that bill because they were like, look, COVID's almost over. We got a vaccine. This seems to me like spend a lot of money when we're halfway past the thing. And they also didn't like it that it had a 5-year sunset.
Okay.
Remember when we've talked about sunsets before?
Yes, and we're about there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I just told you the history. Okay. So now we're rolling up to this. And on December 31st, all this stuff is going to turn into a pumpkin. And the subsidies for the ACA plans will revert back to where they were legally, where they were passed.
Not up to that 150,000.
No. It's going to go all the way
back down.
Right.
Okay.
All the way back to that. And that's the way the Democrats wrote the bill, and not a single Republican voted for it. Okay. So now here we are. So you saw it being ramped up that people are going to lose their health care and it will become unaffordable. You heard all that. Okay. And that's what it is in reference to, this COVID extension. It has nothing to do with how the law was designed. It's all about this COVID extension. Okay. And the news is doing a terrible job on there because they're not making that clear to anybody. If they just said COVID extension, people would say, why are we still doing COVID stuff? I mean, I really think a lot of this would go away.
I mean, I think a lot of us now, COVID is still out there, but it's not as big as it,
it's a successful virus. Yeah. It's a successful virus, which means it is mutating to the level where it doesn't kill its host. When the common cold first hit Europe, millions of people died. And now you just go to CVS and pick something up.
Yes.
That's what I mean by a successful virus. Successful virus mutates so that it survives and it doesn't kill its host. Zika was an unsuccessful virus. It killed everybody it touched, and it died with them. That's why you heard about Zika. Remember Zika? And then it just
I remember Zika. Yeah,
kill everybody.
That's a mosquito, right?
No transmission. If your host dies, you do too. That's how that works. So,
and I think that's why I think that this is important, because sometimes it is confusing when, especially if you just rely on just the news for consumption of what's happening.
You got to remember, everybody's telling the side of the story from their perspective. Okay. So you flash to today. And so the Democrats were saying, we're going to die on this hill unless you put this ACA stuff in and extend it. And I think they wanted extended like 5 more years or 6 more years or whatever. They wanted to push it way out. We have to have this. We have to have this, and you're going to get blamed because all these people's rates are going to go up. And the Republicans are like, look, A, we never voted for the thing, and B, super rich. You want us to bail you out. Because we're going to tell everybody the reason it's going away is because you're the one that wrote the bill and you didn't even let us get in the House. You know, you didn't ask for our help. You didn't listen to us. You didn't do anything. You had the votes and you rammed it down our throats, and so fine. So you live with it. I mean, that's how the Republican caucus feels. They have no mercy. No mercy, because they just intend to hang it around the Democrats' neck. The Democrats are going to try to, of course, hang it around the Republicans' neck, and who knows where that goes. Right? I don't really know. But anyway, that's the backstory behind the deal. And that is why the deal done in the Senate did not include extending those. All they promised was the Democrats would be allowed to vote.
Okay.
Okay, and what I expect to happen is all the Democrats will vote for it and all the Republicans will vote no, because they did the last time. They're not changing their votes. They hate it and then they hate it now. It's just nothing's any different. And then that will be that. So anyway, so that bill went to the House. Now here's where it gets a little hinky, because the way the Constitution is written, bills authorizing spending or raising revenue must originate in the lower house.
Okay.
Okay, because they're the only ones that have that authority.
And that's the House.
So they did this deal in the Senate and threw it to the House. And so what the House has got to do, and this is what I didn't know what would happen, because I was afraid the House was going to look at that and like, we didn't sign up for anything. We did our job. You guys, you're the guys who screwed this up. We didn't do a damn thing wrong, and now you want us to do this? Get out of here. I'm not going to do it. But they didn't do it. So they were negotiating today. So the bill, as I understand it, so the House Republicans did agree for a vote in the Senate. They did not agree to a vote in the House. So there's going to be a vote in the Senate, which I don't even know how that's going to work in real life. But anyway, they kept the military constructions, the veteran affairs, the federal workforce, the funding of non-Social Security benefits, all that other stuff. And they added enhanced security for members of Congress, because they've been getting death threats non-freaking stop since the election.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Yeah. It's been crazy.
Yeah. And so they're scared to death. And, President Trump,
rightly so.
There were 2 attempts on President Trump. You had some dude shoot Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota, which is kind of confusing because he was an appointee and a member of the Democrat governor's administration. Nobody ever solved that. And that case just disappeared right away. I have no idea what happened there. But nonetheless, these people were killed for political reasons. That's the main thing you should take away from that.
And that's scary.
Yeah. 100% killed for political reasons. And then Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and so everybody's feeling like, you
can't have an opinion anymore.
Just takes one person with a grudge. And social media, allows you to stand at arm's length and just say the most vile things. And I don't know if you knew this, but Kristi Noem, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth moved all of their families to an undisclosed military base for protection. They left their houses. Oh. They live on a military base because they were just the CIA, the NSA. Everybody was like, you're gonna get shot at. Okay, you're flat out gonna get shot at, right? So, and that's
PTSD for the family. I mean, for the kids.
Oh, it is, yeah. For those that, schools, and all sort of stuff, and yeah. So wow. It's definitely a different world, right? So, the Senate is in agreement with the increased security protection because both the Senate Republicans and the Democrats wanted it. The only difference was the Republicans didn't want to spend the money. And now that the House is willing to spend the money, the Republicans are going to go, okay, you're the check writing people. So, I mean, just, okay, fine. So there should be a vote tonight, my latest intelligence is 8:30.
Oh, okay.
And so the minute that bill passes, they will race it over to the Senate, and the Senate will pass it, and then the government will
Reopen
1 minute after that. Right.
Will it be 45 days? Would today be 45th?
So here's the thing. The spending authority only goes through January 31st.
And that's what I thought. I thought it was just only for a short period of time for them to vote, and then
they almost always are.
Okay.
They
Okay.
almost always are. And this is why I say all the time, for God's sakes, do a budget. Can you just do a budget? This dragging the American people through, because here's the thing, the American people, the way they look at this, and it really doesn't matter Republican or Democrat. I really genuinely think it does.
Yeah,
they look at this
like I'm gonna agree.
as wealthy, disconnected people, totally divorced from reality, having a mud fight in a sandbox for no one's benefit but their own.
Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like. It feels like,
and it just
the American people, we don't matter.
Just makes you want to fire them. So
yeah, like fire them all.
It really does. No,
honestly,
it
does. Yeah,
it really does. And the House was kind of getting tarred with that brush because they did their work, but they kept on getting dragged into it. The House Republicans aren't doing anything. I'm like, the House Republicans passed a bill.
So it's really the Senate that needs to do what they need to do.
I mean, they did what they had. They did what they had, and it just aggravated me when I just saw person after person say the House Republicans are absent from this. Well, yeah, because they're not senators. I mean, did you sleep through civics entirely when you were in
okay?
School? So that aggravated me. What has aggravated me about this is, both sides. It allows both sides to shade the story the way they want it, but the number of people I saw do post on Facebook, people who I respect and who I regard as highly educated, were posting things that said the Republicans have total control of government. They got the presidency, they got the House, they got the Senate. So how is this the Democrats' fault? And I was like, cloture, the filibuster rule. I mean,
now talk about the cloture real quick. So explain that a little, because of course I'm going to go research it.
The way the filibuster works is, so if you're a minority party, right? So you don't have the votes, right? If there's something so distasteful, it's going to happen, right? You just can't you can't see your way past it, right? For a variety of reasons, it doesn't matter. The reasons are totally irrelevant. Because the Senate protects minority rights, once you invoke that, then you've invoked it, and now a cloture vote has to be passed. Now, under normal circumstances with no cloture, the Democrats have 53 seats. The Republicans hold 53 seats. The Democrats hold, 47? And so the Republicans, as long as they vote on party line, can get anything done they want, right? That's pure majority. And that is how the House works. Pure majority. And there is no minority rights in the House. In the House, if you're the party out of power, you get treated like lower than vacuum cleaner dust. So, but in the Senate, there's protection. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So in order to achieve cloture, you need 60 votes, right? Which is 2/3 of the Senate, right? The Senate's 2 senators for each state, 100 senators, and so you get the drift. It's sorry, it's not 60%. It's, what is that? 33 1/3, whatever the heck it is.
You said 2/3? Yeah. Okay.
But I was wrong.
That was wrong. Okay.
It's 60. And there are 100. So you need 60%. Put it that as the easiest way to do it. Okay. You need 60% of everybody who votes there to be on board. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the Republicans do indeed hold control of the Senate. They hold the majority. They have 53, 3 more than the Ds. But 53 is less than 60.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get that measure to the floor, they needed 7 Democrat senators to come over.
Mm-hmm.
And minority leader Schumer believed that he could extract things out of the Trump administration, despite that never having been done before in the history of this kind of maneuver. Apparently he thought he was going to pull it off. And so if they could make things miserable enough for Trump, he would cave. Because the Democrats call him Taco,
They call him what?
Taco.
Taco?
Yeah. Trump,
like a taco.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Trump always chickens out.
Oh.
So they call him Taco.
Oh, funny. Okay.
Yeah, I tend to look at it as the minute he figures out something isn't working, he changes gears. He has no hesitation. He has no hesitation. I've never seen a president pull a 180 and do something else instead. But that's how you work in business. CEO thinks an investment isn't panning out. We're not doing that anymore.
Do something new. Mm-hmm.
Not that we're going to do money after bad. Let's try something different. I'm not doing this. But anyway, that's what they call him. And so they thought they could pressure him enough to give in. And that's why I say, when you go into a negotiation, the party at the table that cannot afford to lose is in a subordinate position. Because I used to do negotiation. The party at the negotiating table, the party that cannot afford to lose, is in the weaker position.
Oh, is in the weaker. Okay, I didn't catch the word.
Because they have to have the deal, and the other side doesn't.
Okay.
And so when that's the case, get ready. They're just going to ram it right down your throat. So, and that's what I thought was inherently wrong with this. They thought that veterans screaming at Trump and poor people, not being to eat, and all this other stuff Trump just would not be able to take that and just go. The interesting was I looked up Trump's approval rating, and his approval rating with the Republican base actually went up when the government shut down. The disapproval went up on the Democrat side, and Republican approval went up. They're like, yeah,
okay,
yeah, do it for how long you have to do it, and whatever it takes.
So that's interesting. So then the cloture then in this instance, so when someone posted,
so 7 senators, right, came over, right. So here, let me get it. And these were the same people who went to Schumer at the very beginning and said, "Do not do this, please.
Don't do this.
For the love of God, do not do this." So the ringleader was John Fetterman from Pennsylvania.
Oh.
The guy that's bald and wears shorts all the time and hoodies. He was.
He wears like this the sweatshirt, like a big guy.
He's
big. Yeah. Okay.
And the gym shorts.
I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So he was a ringleader of that, and and so with him was Catherine Cortez Masto from New Mexico. New Mexico, I don't know if you know this, but the federal government owns most of the land out west. The federal government does, not the states.
Well, no, that's what I'm hearing you say. So the federal government owns a lot of New Mexico?
Yeah, a buttload of it. They own most of it. So, and that's true all throughout the West, with the exception of Texas, which is entirely held privately. It's the only state in the country that doesn't have. The only thing the Texans ceded was military bases, and they sold them to the government.
So there's land that we don't own here in the state of Indiana that belongs to the federal government.
National forests. Oh yeah, national forests.
Oh, okay. Like so like the national parks.
Indiana's an older state. You got to remember migration. Indiana's been a state since 1816. People mostly own Indiana. We've been here for a long time.
Oh, wow.
Over 100 years, you kind of buy it up. You know what I mean?
What? It is so funny because there's things that I don't even think about until all these conversations we have. And it's just like, oh my God, another rabbit hole to go down.
Is when the federal government owns most of your land, what the federal government does matters a lot. And so a huge percentage of the New Mexican workforce is paid by the federal government. I mean, they work in New Mexico. These are New Mexicans.
They're impacted by that. So
Brutally,
this is a state that can definitely.
These are all the federal workers. These are the people at the national parks. These are the people on the Navajo reservations. I mean, it's just everywhere. The federal government is the largest employer in New Mexico by a mile, right? So
wow. Okay. So this makes it make sense a little bit more. Okay.
So Catherine Cortez Masto wanted this done. Angus King. Now he's from Maine, but he's an independent. And independents are different cats because they just don't give a rip. And the independents run the roost in Maine. The Democrat Party in Maine and the Republican Party in Maine have fractional registration compared to the independents. Independents run the roost. Dick Durbin, Illinois. Durbin is not running for re-election. That's why he did it. Then both senators from New Hampshire, also with a ton of federal employment. Maggie Hassan and Jean Shaheen. And then Tim Kaine from Virginia. Tim Kaine's a senator from Virginia. And a huge percentage of the Virginia workforce works for the federal government because they have the lowest property taxes. So they all live on the other side of the Potomac and go to work in DC. Okay. Yeah, so that's where the federal workers live, in Maryland or Virginia. And if you don't like high taxes, you live in Virginia. And if you don't mind the taxes, you live in Maryland, right? Because Maryland taxes are more easy compared to Virginia, right? So I used to live in Maryland. I know. When I moved to Indiana, I got like a $5,000 raise just not paying Maryland taxes. Honest to God.
Wow.
So anyway, so those are the ones that crossed over, and that was enough to break it loose. Now, when they actually had to vote for the cloture, Schumer voted against it. Schumer voted to get the government shut down. Yeah. And I think he's just terrified of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And he rightfully should be, because she's going to just eat him alive in a primary. He has like no chance. The worst person, I think, if you were to give me a picture of the most disliked person in the U.S. today, the image that would come up would be an old white guy.
And you mean like Schumer, or you're just being general?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
Really? Okay.
Mitch McConnell in the Senate, I literally saw him. He's going down the hallway. He has to be supported by two guys on either side of him, take him down the hall, and he's dragging his feet. He belongs in a wheelchair. He can't walk. And they were literally just dragging him by his toes. It reminded me of Dianne Feinstein when they flew her back and put her in a wheelchair and sent her in the Senate.
Okay, Feinstein. Okay, yes.
Grabbing her hand and like going bang, bang, bang. You know,
I mean
it's elder abuse. It's elder abuse. And he's going to be 80. He would be 82 when he finished the next term, if he finished it. And historically, the Democrats have really liked to hold on to people because these folks have controlled money, right? They control massive amounts of money. And so that's why the average age of the Republicans and the Democrats in the House and the Senate, the Republicans are younger.
Okay. Yes.
Mostly because Republicans decide to punch out. They're like, I've done enough of this. I'm going to go make some money for a change. I'm out of here. That happens all the time in Indiana. All the time in Indiana. They'll do like 3 or 4 hitches at the most. What's his name? In 8, Larry. Do you remember him? The heart surgeon, Larry Huxton. I think. Oh, it's just terrible. I can't remember his name, but he did like 5 terms. And he was like, I'm done. He's going back to be a doctor for a little bit. I don't think Todd Young will run. I don't think Todd Young will run again.
I kind of get that because I get his emails, updates. And I can tell how his emails are different from the other emails. And you can tell that he's
last
just
time
like,
I talked to him, I just feel for him it's genuine public service. It's genuine public
honestly,
service.
I feel the same way too. That it's just
that's always
just
the vibe.
genuine public service.
Even when he was in the House of Representatives, I mean, that was the pure vibe I got. Trey Hollingsworth was that way in the House in Indiana 9. He was the same way. Now, of course, he left a lot sooner. he left after 2 terms, but yeah, I just get the sense from Todd that he feels like he did his part. Is kind of how I look at it.
And he seems to be inclusive to me, in my opinion.
Very. The dude,
conservative yet inclusive of everyone.
Yeah, wrong in principle on his vote, but he would listen to anybody.
I get that
charitably,
as well.
Ask probing questions. Never criticized an individual personally for a policy he didn't agree with. He never made it on an attack rate. That dude's a genuine throwback to 50 years ago, back when we had Tip O'Neill and those guys. They're a totally dead breed.
It's different now for sure.
Oh my God, it's different, and it just creates a different challenge for us in advocacy.
I agree.
The being able to read the room now is so much more important than it was. It used to be, what the caucus was going to do, all this other stuff. And now, I mean, I'm really glad that you're going to be going out in front of this and I'm going to be behind you cheering on, because I don't know that it is so different from when I started. I mean, I understand it. I get it. I'll be able to help you be successful. There's none of that stuff, but it's so much harder.
It is a lot different. I feel like right now it seems like this government affairs and understanding what's happening and being able to think critically and think strategically is the next move for HR professionals, because there's so much going on that you can't sit back and wait for someone. You kind of have to be.
We're in the model of epochal change right now, and it's going to get way worse before it gets better, right? And the reason I say that is
it's going down, but it's going to work its way back up.
Okay, it will. It always does. Okay, it's a pendulum. But the point I'm going to make is that
hopefully I'm alive.
In June, we crossed a barrier we'd never crossed before in the history of the Republic. Well, that's not true. In the history of post-war U.S., post-World War II, this had never happened. From post-World War II until June of this year, the unemployment rate of recent college grads had never been higher than the general unemployment rate. It was always a lot lower. And for the first time, it came up higher. And I don't think that's a trend line that's going to change. I think we've crossed a path here. And where I'm going with this, and especially with AI, and this is where policy is going to be so important at the corporate level, because the government's going to be slow and late, and don't look for any help from the government for regulation. By the time they figure it out, it's too late. Your company's going to struggle, and you're going to have to learn how to advocate with your own company. But AI is coming on so fast and so furious. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has a handle on it. The number of companies that have a strategic point of view about how they're going to use it is like 3% of them. And everybody else is turning their employees loose to be cowboys, I guess. I mean, it's just, they're just kind of trying to figure it out on the fly. And the problem is that those are going to eliminate some number of jobs, and then they're going to eliminate another number of jobs. And as the AI improves in terms of quality and speed, and it will, then it starts digging into more jobs. Now, it's not going to wipe out every job, and I'm going to be living in some dystopian matrix. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not one of those people.
No, me either.
But here's my point. And here's why I'm going with Mondami's election. When you look who voted for Mondami,
okay,
it was wealthy, college-educated, or underemployed females and males, divorced females, And the people who voted against him were small business owners and the working class. And those people came out like mad. And here's why. Here's our problem. And there's no way to get out of this. Easy. We have overproduced elites. You know what I mean by that?
Overproduced elites?
Elites.
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 Elites. Okay.
We have overproduced elites.
Okay.
So this has happened a couple times in history, and it always predates a violent revolution, unfortunately. Every time. You run into the problem when young elites, and it's always young elites, it's not older elites, because older elites made their money, got their security, paid off their homes. They are in hilltop fortresses. They are just above it all. But the younger people, so when the economy hits the point where it gets enough elites, it's not like a flare gun goes off and says, hey, by the way, back down on the college stuff and do the skilled trade stuff where we got enough. That didn't happen. And so what happens with the young elites is they get it pounded into them. You got to go to college, you got to go to college, you go to college, and you got to take up mountains of debt, but it's okay. Because when you get to the end of that, you're going to get this really high paying job. You're going to make bank. You're going to live in fantastic cities. You're going to have this fantastic life. I mean, everything will be yours. Right. And then they arrive. And when that first group arrives for whom that's not true, because it was true for a while. It really was, right? When only 21% of people in the United States had any college at all. That was like when I graduated in 1982. I was a rare bird. Now, I wasn't rare in DC. In DC, it was like 99.
Well, yeah, that's what the community breeded. Pretty much, right? Yeah.
I felt really undereducated when I moved there. But nonetheless, there's only about 21% of the people had any college at all, let alone graduate. I mean, just any college.
Okay.
And so now we're up to like 48% that have some college. And so the two things that happened was they were sold that story. They played by the rules that their teachers told them, that the schools told them, that the newspapers told them, that the business leaders told them, that the Chamber of Commerce told them, that the church told them. I mean, you go down the line, and everybody told them the same story. And so now they arrive with a ton of debt and no way to pay it. That debt starts becoming due the minute you graduate, like the next day, payment due, right? So they live in cramped apartments. They string together 3 or 4, related jobs. They drive for Uber. They do TaskRabbit. They do Instacart. They do, they're trying to scrape together a living. And that's just not enough money to live on. And they live in these tiny apartments, utterly miserable. And the only thing they know for sure is that everybody from top to bottom, starting with their parents and everybody else who is an adult, meaning somebody older than them, lied to them to their face. And now they see a system rigged against them where everybody else has theirs, and these bastards are pulling up the rope ladder behind them.
And that totally makes sense, because you think about AI, I think the thing about AI is that a lot of people think that, you don't need to know anything else but AI, and, you have the advantage, where I think that people who have experience, and then you give those people with a lot of experience AI, sometimes, those are the people that can innovate the jobs, but the new people coming in,
they can.
What experience do they have?
What AI is eliminating is the entry level jobs, and that's where
and that's what it is. What do the newer people have
how do you climb a ladder realistically where the first 3 rungs are sawed off? You reduce it to the people who can jump.
That's true.
It's Darwinian. It is Darwinian as hell. And I completely understand the sub 30-year-old people thinking that. I do not argue when I hear that anger, when I hear that sent back, I defend none of it, right? I defend none of it. The fact of the matter is they got the education past the sell-by date and nobody told them. Nobody told them they couldn't be monetized. Nobody. Now, my kids went into different areas where they can monetize it, so they were sheltered. Plus, I knew being in debt is an absolute nightmare because that's how I grew up. So I paid for all my kids' college because I couldn't tie that millstone around their neck. I just couldn't do it. And so they're able to move ahead in life differently because of that. But we can't get out of this easily. And so then you have Mandami in New York saying, you were screwed. You people right here, my people, right? Because he's talking to people at his age.
Okay. And how old is he about?
He's never worked a day in his life. I mean, other than being a New York counselor for like two years, his mom got him the job. I mean, just he's never done an honest day's work in his entire life, for sure. But anyway,
okay.
So he's like, I feel your pain. You should be living better. You should have these things. So, don't spend your hard-earned, Uber-earned money on bus fares free. Don't spend your money getting on the subway to work free. Don't spend your hard-earned money on this or that free. So everything with him was just free. I'm just, the government's going to pay for everything. And we're going to take over the grocery stores. And so you won't be gouged anymore and you'll get all your food from the government.
And that's who won. Okay. So that's why it was a big,
when he was running that argument was almost at the same time people started complaining about SNAP and how they were going to starve if they didn't get that money from the government. And the thought that came in my head was, is nobody connecting these dots? The government that can feed you also can starve you.
And that's the power. And that's the power
is nobody looking at both ends of this thing?
But that is the point right there, that if you give, I know, but if you give the government so much power, then that means, to do well, that means, one day that same institution can be used to do bad, I know that's.
So the problem with all those models is in reality, nothing is free. So in order to make something free, it has to be extracted from people who produce it at their loss. I have said many, many times when people have told me healthcare needs to be free, I'm like, okay, so who's going to operate on you? Well, surgeon. How are they going to get paid? Well, somebody's going to pay them. With what? From where? And how long are they going to work when they can't make the money that they need to make with all that mad skill? And just say no. No, I don't want to do that. I'll do something else in my life. Hyper successful people, the people who are brilliant, the people who have mad skills and talents, in other words, not me, those people will always be successful. No matter what on earth is going on, these people are going to be successful. My point is they have choices. And this is what I've always said. You go after people who have talent, skill, and ability and tell them, yeah, I need you to take a really big, like 40-50% haircut and just hand that over to me and be thankful for the rest you have. And they're like, I think Texas looks real good. They don't have any tax. I think there are people there that could be operated on. I'm sure there's a hospital would hire me. I mean, you can only do that to people who can't move. This is why it was illegal to leave the Soviet Union, illegal to leave East Germany and all those. You have to put up walls and keep the people in, because otherwise a certain percentage will run away.
That's just really interesting. Yeah. So, I hadn't been watching the news, so I saw that it was a big deal when he won, but
the only reason I brought it up is because that election was actually wrapped up in the whole shutdown thing. I mean, the whole shutdown thing was Schumer just had a lot of irons in the fire. I wouldn't want the guy's job. I mean, no matter how hard he works, no matter what he does, and he's a skilled politician. Don't get me wrong. I mean, people are screaming at him and telling me he's a hack and he's washed it and all this stuff. Don't count me as one of those people. I don't believe that. He is playing the worst, absolute worst hand of cards you could possibly play. and he's trying to do it the best he can. And I defy anybody else play it better than him. Now, this shutdown was stupid. Stupid. It was stupid when McConnell did it. It was, like I said, the Republicans and Democrats made this mistake many times. And I think about the only way we'll break the parties of this is you gotta, when elections come up, you gotta fire the ringleaders. You gotta fire the people who thought this was a really good idea. You gotta fire Chuck Schumer. You gotta fire Elizabeth Warren. You gotta fire Bernie Sanders. All the bomb throwers. All those people. Fire them all. Fire them all. And say, does anybody else have an appetite for not doing their job? Anybody? Because that's what happened in Indiana. In Indiana, when the House Democrats left the state during the first vote for the right to work.
And years ago or something.
Yeah. They left the state and went to a hotel in Illinois. And there were enough of the Democrats that they denied the Republicans a quorum, so they couldn't even bring the bill up. They didn't have a quorum.
Interesting.
And so they could do that. And of course, the Democrats talked about why they did it and why they were principled about all this other stuff. So they made all their arguments. The problem was in Indiana, your average person saw them as kind of like refusing to go to work and do their job. That's how they kind of saw it. It was like, I go to work every single day and do things I don't like. What the heck is your problem? I mean, what makes you so freaking special? And so they did it. They ran out the string. And so the Republicans caved, took the bill out of the hopper, off the schedule, said we won't bring it up. And then they came back and did the rest of the session. Right. So the Republicans relented and they did it. And
wow.
Democrats claimed victory and, all sort of stuff. And in the next election, they got completely, utterly destroyed. And the Republicans took a supermajority in the House. They have never relented.
Never looked back since then.
So many of them got fired that if they ever leave again, it can't affect the quorum.
Interesting.
So in my point of view, the voters just said, "Okay, I'll fix your wagon. What's the number I got to have here? What's the number where you don't do your job and we still get stuff done? What's that number? Okay, that's your number. That's
interesting." And that was from the right to work. Okay, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, that was right to work. If you look it up, you'll find it. Right. Indiana legislators, flee to Illinois or something like that. Mitch Daniels.
It's a little funny, but
Mitch Daniels.
I mean, they do all these things. Well, we're like 47 minutes, like totally past. But great conversation.
Well,
we made it for last month.
I mean, I learn more every time Rachel's on. My God, I learn more about ORB and those cases and the implications of all that. I mean, she is just such a gem addition to this program because I don't have any of her mad skills. So yeah.
Well, that's why I think that's what makes us an interesting team to work with, right? Because we are all different in so many different ways, but yet
we did bring different expertise and knowledge.
That's right. That's right.
I can talk about why the crazy stuff is happening and make it make sense, So.
And I honestly, I do love the case law. Rachel has gotten me into researching more case law just to learn it for myself as well. So I mean, this is an opportunity for us to help each other learn, but then also for our listeners to know that, you can start today.
I hope people download this on LinkedIn. So, all right.
And then I'm going to clip this up. So yes. So thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you sharing about the government shutdown, because I know that's really helpful. I know a lot of people are questioning what that is. And my biggest takeaway from that is I didn't realize that there are some states that have lots more of the federal workers. So I just thought it was just all DC. But to understand that it's pretty much spread out across the United States. And so that's why it's really impactful. It's way more impactful than what I really understood.
It's a huge nightmare for like California and New York.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because 38% of the entire population in the United States that collects those benefits like SNAP and WIC and Section 8, all that safety net stuff, 38% of everybody in the United States who collects those benefits lives either in California or New York. And then everybody else just loose change through the rest of the country. Chicago's got a bunch, Indy's got a bunch, then it goes to the metro centers, right? The metro centers, but everything in the interior of the country is really loose gravel. And so it was a huge problem for those representatives, although they held their positions. Not one single senator in California yielded. Not one single senator from New York yielded. I mean, even though their constituents were just about to really suffer, they did not cave.
You have to do what's right for your constituents, the people that put you in office. I mean, if they
and I would argue, I would argue in their defense that they believe they are.
Yeah.
Just as I would argue the 7 Democrat senators who swung over to vote for.
I would hope that because their constituents asked them to.
I would argue that they made their vote based on self-same analysis. So it's the thing we need to remember in advocacy, the thing that we always need to remember. It is entirely possible, I would argue probable, for rational people of good intentions to disagree. There's nothing wrong with it.
That's right. It
doesn't have to be a knife fight. So anyway, okay, well, I got to bounce. I got work to do. So.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys until next month. That's right. Okay. All right. Bye.